So in section 2.5, we're going to be looking at what we call transformation of functions. So this is a way of graphing certain types of equations without creating an XY table. It involves shifting and or reflecting graphs about the grid. Now, what we are introduced to here are what I call the library of functions. You have an x square. All quadratic graphs are going to be U-shaped. Now, some could be an upward U. They could be an upside down U. They can be located all over the grid itself. This is the very most basic square graph because it's just x squared by itself. Square root of x. It's shaped this way, okay? Because you can't take the square root of a negative, so therefore x cannot be negative. So it's a graph that kind of starts quickly and levels off as it goes. The x cubed graph, okay? It's, kind of like a snake, I call it. Right through the origin, it transitions. The cube root of x, it's kind of like the square root graph, but then it's also reflected about the origin. So it's similar to the cube graph. It's just kind of rotated and flipped, but that's the cube root graph. And the absolute value graph is a V. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these basic shapes and then other random type graphs and just shift them about the grid. Okay, so keep in mind you need to know these. Okay, you need to know these shapes. So we first want to look at vertical shifts, up or down, vertical. So if we add or subtract a number to one of the basic library of functions, then we shift it up or down based on the sign. If it's plus, we shift it up. If it's minus, we shift it down. So for x squared plus 3, we would take the x squared graph, move the 0, 0 point up 3, and then just sketch the U. Don't have to find any other points. It's just a matter of shifting up or down, right or left. This one right here is the square root of x minus 2. Now you notice the minus 2 is not underneath the square root. So again, that goes as a vertical shift. So I would shift the 0, 0 point down 2 and then just sketch that x squared shape. Remember, the x squared shape is that shape right there. Okay, those are vertical. Horizontal, you notice the difference, hopefully. The subtraction is inside parentheses. Up here, the addition and subtraction is not. So therefore, when we have something inside a grouping symbol, adding or subtracting, it's horizontal. And you got to remember this, we do opposite the sign. Okay, so right here we have x plus 4 in parentheses squared. Horizontal, because the addition is inside parentheses. So I'm going to take the 0, 0 graph and I go opposite the sign and I sketch my U. And again, my U's don't look anything the same because they're just sketches. It's okay. I'm not an artist. So this would be left 4. Horizontal, opposite the sign. Absolute value. Again, I'm subtracting inside the absolute value symbols. So I go right 3. So 1, 2, 3. Draw my V. We can also combine horizontal and vertical shifts. So the subtraction is inside the square root. So that would be horizontal. This would be vertical. So I would go right 3, up 4. Uh-oh, did I run into my drawing? 1, 2, 3. Yep, 1, 2, 3, 4. Move my 0, 0 point write 3 up 4, and sketch the square root of x graph. Lastly, we have reflecting graphs. So we have reflecting involves negative signs. One type of reflection is what we consider reflection about the x-axis or over the x-axis, and that would be a flip upside down with the minus sign on the outside of the function. If we want to reflect it about the y-axis, left and right, the minus sign is inside the grouping symbol. So if I want to do this graph, I know my square root of x graph is here, so I flip it over, reflect it about the x-axis. Since the minus sign is inside, I reflect it the opposite direction. It goes the other way, because remember the square root of x graph is here. We reflect it about the y-axis. So those are your shifts. We will do those and different other types in class involving just basic shapes on graphs, but I just want this to be an introduction on reflecting itself and the difference between vertical, horizontal, and the reflections.